5 hosts, 4 divisions, all battling it out for the Holy Grail of the American Hockey League, the Calder Cup. This is the Holy Grail Podcast. Here are your hosts, Jeremy Paul, Zack Power, Andrew Rinaldi, Corey Swartz, and Deana Weinheimer.
Hello and welcome to episode 39 of Field Pass Hockey's American Hockey League podcast, The Holy Grail. Of course, we are here to talk about the last week in American Hockey League action and all of the news and everything that goes along with that. But to kick off the show and to get you reacclimated to our voices, and for those of you watching on YouTube, our faces as well, I have a new question for you guys. If you had the opportunity to go to one AHL venue that you haven't already been to, which one would it be? Andrew, we're going to go back. Alphabetical order. You're first.
All right. I'm Andrew Rinaldi, for any of those who might have forgotten my lovely voice. And I mean, is this even really a question? The Bojangles Coliseum has the best name in the whole league. Until they build that rink in Coachella Valley, until that's ready, it's got to be Bojangles Coliseum.
Yeah, I'm Corey Swartz. This is a good question for me, actually. The one I'm hoping I can cross off my list here, maybe even this season, is to get down to Lehigh Valley to see the PPL Center. I've heard a lot of good things about it ever since it was built, that, it's very fan-friendly. There's a lot of, they always say that you can see down to the ice, before you're even into the actual bowl of the arena. It just sounds really, really fascinating, really awesome. It's one of the most modern arenas, I think, in the AHL, even though modern is, saying 8 years now for them, actually. So very excited to see that building in person next.
I'm Deana Weinheimer, and full transparency, I've only ever been to one AHL arena, which is, of course, the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse in Cleveland. Though I will be I lied, because I was in Grand Rapids. Mm-hmm. Wow.
No,
yeah.
Gonna bring that one up.
I was at Van Andel Arena. I lied. I'll technically, I wouldn't call it lying, but I forgot. How could I forget? Because Andrew was with me. That's horrible.
I'm right here, Deana.
I know, right? Like, I was with him, Jeremy. You think I'd remember that? Wow. Anyway, so I'll be in my third, hopefully, come February, which will be Place Bell. But if I could go to any arena for a game, give me the Coca-Cola Coliseum in Toronto. I've driven past there so many times during trips to Toronto, and the FOMO is real, and I just can't wait to take in a game there someday.
Yeah, and I'm Zack Power. You know that arena is 101 years old? That's kind of crazy to think about, but if you're there, definitely take the 509 exhibition. I'm the writer for the Marlies, and I think that one place that is definitely on the bucket list is Hershey Park. I know me and Corey were kind of talking about it a little bit off air, but I want to go there and just eat chocolate. That's my whole goal, and if I do that, I will die happy.
I have to ask Corey, because I was probably like 7 or 9 years old last time I was out in Hershey. Do they still have that ride where you get the free chocolate?
Oh yeah, the tour ride. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a little different now. They changed it a few times over the years. Just in shape and size, not necessarily in substance, really. But they still have that. If you come out in February, the usual promotion in Hershey is chocolate-covered February. So if you come out to a Bears game, you usually leave with some chocolate there as well. And they're always switching it up, so they have different, a lot of times it's whatever their, the newest thing is. But, it's always pretty good stuff no matter what it is.
My birthday's in February. I might have to take a special birthday trip out to Hershey, Pennsylvania. That sounds good to me. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and move right on into the show, because we have got a busy one for everybody today. We do have a very special guest. San Jose Barracuda forward Thomas Bordeleau is going to be joining us later in the show. But of course, we got to start off with some breaking news. Calgary's Clark Bishop has been suspended for 4 games as a consequence of a match penalty for cross-checking in a game in Colorado on Friday, October 21st. If you are watching on YouTube, you're seeing a clip of that live here. And then in addition to a game that he's already missed, he will also miss Calgary's games on Friday, October 28th, and Saturday, October 29th at Coachella Valley, and then November 2nd versus Tucson. Yeah, it's a no-brainer call right there in the ice. And honestly, it was a little disheartening to watch afterwards. You know, he was putting up a fight against one of the officials as he was trying to lead him off the ice. I mean, honestly, it was really hard to watch this unfold.
Yeah, I can understand a bit of maybe leniency after the first one, but then the guy is down, I think it was Hamilton, right? Who was down there on the ice on his knees and kind of gave him a whack. And I mean, I would have given him a whack if someone cross-checks me in the face. And so Bishop doubles down and gives him another one. And then, tussling with the refs after that, it's just, I don't know. I guess the wires kind of crossed a little bit there for him. But either way, there's just no excuse for that kind of play. I'm all for the rough stuff. I'm one of the few voices out there that still says, like, let him go, let him fight and all that. But that's not rough. That's not hockey. That's a dangerous play. It's going to get guys hurt, and there's just no need for it. 2 games per cross check, I think is pretty healthy, and Clark's going to sit and he's going to feel shame and have some time to think about his actions.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one, because it's one of those things where your emotions, right? You know, someone that's played hockey, anybody that's played hockey will tell you they can get emotional during a game, and, you know, you do something and you immediately regret it. You like to think that's probably what happened here, is they, you know, just saw red a little bit, and, you know, I think it's the right consequence for it, though, because you really have to be in control of yourself, especially in this day and age. So I agree, it's the right call. Got to set an example. Can't let it happen.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't want to downplay the fact, because it is a very, very it's a serious situation, especially when those cross checks start to get up high. Clark Bishop, a Newfoundland and Labrador boy, Calder Cup champion with Charlotte, and you know what? I think that it's like what Corey said. Sometimes when you get into the game, you get in the heat of a moment. And for a lot of these players, you know, it's not even like you realize what you're doing, because everything is just kind of going so fast. You kind of get into that tunnel vision. But nonetheless, it's I'll talk about it a little bit more later on in the show, but it's definitely a healthy consequence for it.
And for any Wolves fans out there, Clark Bishop was traded out of the Carolina organization for Max Lajoie. So, hey, there's a little bit of trivia there for you. Defensive stalwart Max Lajoie. I just wanted to throw that in there.
You always have a way to tie everything back to the Wolves, don't you?
I try to be a good beat reporter.
You are a wonderful beat reporter. All right, we're going to touch on a few more newsworthy topics from the last week in our weekly news recap. And of course, new week, which means a new player of the week honors. So Laurent Dauphin has been named the AHL player of the week for the week ending October 23rd. Get this. He scored 4 goals, 1 assist. Of course, for the mathematically challenged, like me, that's 5 points through 2 games this weekend against the Bakersfield Condors. Now, this includes his first career hat trick, again, propelling the Roadrunners to a sweep of their home opening weekend. And then moving on to some signings, well, I guess a signing. The Abbotsford Canucks has signed forward Kyle Rau on a 1-year AHL deal. Now, guys, honestly, for me, I was still shocked that he was unsigned at this point. He scored 25 goals, 28 assists for 53 points in 55 games played for Iowa last year. How did it take him this long to get on a roster?
I think it's hard to justify how good of a player he is. And you know what? It's amazing that it kind of took him so long. Abbotsford has kind of really been needing players with Vancouver, everything that's kind of been happening up in the NHL. And I think that this guy just kind of went underneath the radar, and it's definitely a strong pick, especially considering the team that he was on last year.
For me, it just kind of, you know, you look at kind of what Iowa's really been doing or not doing, I guess I should say, over there in the bottom of the Central. And you look at letting a guy like Kyle Rau walk away. Last year he had 53 points in 55 games. You don't even know. I mean, maybe there was a contract offered. Maybe he was looking for an NHL two-way deal, and it just never came to fruition. He was just kind of holding out, waiting for a team like Abbotsford, where they're going to be competitive in that Pacific. He can fight his way on in some big minutes, and maybe earn a way onto, a Vancouver squad that, I mean, as of right now, looks like it's really struggling. So, it's all about finding your best path to the NHL, and I think Kyle might have found a pretty good one there in Abbotsford. I hope he keeps it up, and I hope he finds success with the Canucks in one form or another.
Yeah, and as someone who was leading the campaign for Kyle Rau to Hershey over the summer before Sam Ennis was signed for that exact purpose, I'm a little surprised. This is news to me as well. I was figuring he'd be picked up back in August or September, not talking about 2 weeks into the season here, certainly. So I agree. I mean, his numbers are solid, but like you said, the NHL opportunity I think has to be right for some of these guys too, and getting that chance to demonstrate what you can do and get in front of some eyes in the NHL is huge. And so I think that he's in a good spot to do that, to start here and then work his way up there and a little bit more. I agree, it's perfect signing.
And one more piece of news that we're going to cover today, and this is actually a hiring by the American Hockey League. So this is, if you are a fan of the ECHL, this name might be a little familiar to you. Stephen Thomson. He has actually been named the manager of hockey operations and player safety. Now, Thomson was previously a referee, including a stint of 2 years in the AHL spanning from 2016 to 2018. And for the past 4 years, Thomson served as the manager of officiation operations for the ECHL. In his new role, Thomson is going to manage the AHL's on-ice officials and will also serve on the AHL's newly formed player safety committee. Personally, I have had the honor to speak with Stephen Thomson the last two Traverse City Prospect tournaments, which is a preseason tournament held by the Detroit Red Wings and, of course, Traverse City, Michigan, where he talked to me about the state of ECHL officiating and just kind of officiating in general. And this is such a bright hockey mind that truly cares about his officials growing just the officiating side of the sport, getting more people interested in officiating. And this move, honestly, for me, was spot on by the league. Now that we have the news out of the way, it's time for the segment we all know and love. Swipe left and swipe right. Rules remain the same. The four of us will be sharing our hot take from around the league, and we'll vote on it. If we like it, swipe right. If we don't, swipe left. And then if we like it, I'm not sure who has the super swipe left, but if they still have it, they can super swipe up if they really like the take. So, Andrew, lead us off.
All right. Well, we're recording here on Tuesday, and this morning I had the delight of covering a school day game for the Chicago Wolves that were hosting the Stars. And so, you get a bunch of little kids hopped up on cotton candy, and I'm sure that was just lovely for the players' eardrums. But you know what? At the end of the day, if you really want to grow the game, it begins with the kids. I think more teams need to do school day games. Not every week, not even every month. I mean, 1 or 2 games per team to bring the kids in and treat them to their own day and really create a unique environment for the players ought to really do it. And I think that kind of just helps into just kind of creating your brand here as the AHL and, spreading the love to some kids. And who doesn't love a day off of school to go see a hockey game? Come on.
Well, yeah. Andrew, I have to say, this is a hard swipe left for me, honestly. We got treated to a preseason game that the Hershey Bears were involved in during the preseason up in Wilkes-Barre. And, as somebody that likes to watch and attend the games myself, it's just not convenient for me, honestly, to, go out there. And I felt bad for for Zach Fish and the rest of the Bears broadcast crew, because, he said it was starting to wear on him a little bit with the noise and all that stuff by the time the game was, well along and all that. So, for me at least, just from what I've seen, the kids make it out plenty easily to the regular games on the weekend. It's arguably just as good or better. I mean, I will agree with the point that, getting out of school for it's pretty special, but, I think in some markets that's okay, but it's kind of like the preseason game argument, right? A little bit for having one where for some teams it just doesn't make sense to have that. And I would give it a swipe left.
You know what? I think I'm going to take it the completely opposite direction, and I'm going to give this a pretty hard swipe right. And I say this for a couple of reasons, but first I wanted to clarify that I'm only thinking 1 or 2 games a year max, no more. But and this will come with a bit of a story, but I personally been knocking around with a team that had its franchise yanked out of their hands. And I'm not talking about the Ice Caps because I talk about them a lot. But one of the big things that this team who lost their franchise said that is they lost it because there wasn't a whole lot of community engagement. The players weren't going to schools and reading to the children. The kids weren't involved. The community wasn't involved. When you involve the community, that's when we get these AHL franchises that are here to stay and here to stay for a long time. And you know what? I know in Toronto, that's when the Marlies games get the Canadian airtime on TSN, on the sports nets of the world. That's when they'll air those games. And because you know what? You're not interfering with the NBA or the NHL or whatever. You know what? Have the games at 11 o'clock, show it on national TV, and why not, right? It's a great way to grow the game. And you know what? For 1 or 2 games a year, I'm sure that a lot of the players, like it or not, can rip off the Band-Aid for at least 1 game.
I'm going to go with Zack on this one and swipe right. I actually was able to cover in person a school day game back before the COVID shutdown in Cleveland, and it was a whole event. They had the Stanley Cup there for people to go get their picture taken with it. It was just a whole production. There were so many kids there getting excited about the organization, about the sport. It was just real cool. I mean, of course, I'm going with the caveat that's like, let's say like 1 game a year per team, but why not? Let the kids have their day. Let them get involved with it.
I don't know. I mean, to Zach's point there about the Marlies games, I feel like the Bears usually find their way into being the opponent, the visitor for one of those games at least once a year. And in fact, I'm without remembering their calendar precisely off the top of my head at this point, I believe they are scheduled to play in one of those games as the road team. But as the home team, I at least know for the Bears that, a team like the Bears that draws well attendance-wise, I don't know that they want to sacrifice a full game for it. So that's the perspective I take. I know I sounded pretty harsh in comparison to you guys there. So, that's just my perspective on it, is just seeing how it is. And, I do see the appeal for it, certainly, of course. There are probably some games I wouldn't mind sacrificing a weekday game for it, truthfully. That's just my opinion, is that, it really it does serve the community well, but for me it's too much of a shock to me, to be honest with you. But then again, most teams end up participating in one of these every year, so it's truly something I think is more widespread than it gets credit for, even if it's not mandated.
But Corey, you brought up a good point too. At what point does the team become the sacrificial lamb? I mean, if you're talking about Hershey and they decide to have a school day game, are they going to have it against a rival that would bring in a big draw of attendance, right? I think about the Marlies. Once the Rocket come into town, that the Coca-Cola Coliseum's pretty packed. Like it's looking pretty good. So at what point does the team become the sacrificial lamb for that?
That would be the Texas Stars for the Chicago Wolves that have to sit there twice in Allstate Arena and listen to the children of Northern Illinois just kind of scream their heads off. And I can imagine it must be kind of difficult for them. But it's, I think there isn't that regional thing there. Texas isn't a little far from Chicago, so they say like maybe we can. It's a little bit. So Yeah, I totally agree with that regional difference for sure.
Well, so for my swipe left or swipe right is that although I didn't have a fun time, to Andrew's point earlier about different arenas, I did not have a fun time watching hockey that was taking place at the Bojangles Coliseum this past weekend with my Bears losing twice to the Charlotte Checkers. But the one thing that kind of always sticks out to me about Charlotte, about their atmosphere there, is that I think it's pretty cool that they still have a live person playing on an organ at the game. And, it's kind of an old school thing nowadays, right? But it's one of those things. It's a classic hockey thing. It always harkens me back to the days of the Hershey Park Arena, where they still do have an organ sitting kind of behind the scenes now. I don't think it's actively used anymore at Hershey Cubs games or anything like that. But, they still have it there. It's a long piece. I know there's a lot of people, and I'm sure a lot of the folks I usually talk to at Bears games that may be listening to that are, have been around for a little while would agree. Bring it back a little bit, not just recordings. I know Hershey, they use recordings of organ music and they've used recordings of it for a long time, but bring back the live stuff. In Hershey, they famously, used to play the tune Three Blind Mice when the referees would come on the ice, some little quirky things like that. I'd like to see stuff like that come back. I think it's one of the, older root type of things of hockey we don't see anymore.
Three Blind Mice, that is iconic. Yes, I love the organ. Honestly, for me, that's one of my favorite things about going down to, I know it's a different league, but Amalie Arena in Tampa is that huge, massive organ that they have. It's great, and it gives that kind of nostalgic feel to it. Just hard swipe right. Absolutely.
Yeah, I love anything that kind of harkens back to the days of the old time hockey and makes me feel a little not so old. So they have the organ player. His name escapes me, but he plays at Little Caesars Arena down in Detroit. I love the atmosphere that it brings, and the organ just screams hockey to me, and I'm all about it. I'm actually probably I'm down at the end of the month here, so I'm probably gonna give this my super swipe because I'm all about that organ deal.
Yeah, and I'm all for it too. I think the biggest cliche about that Three Blind Mice is that I bet at the time that was when the AHL had 3 officials, so that would make it all the more better. But I'm definitely going to go swipe right on this, and I would also encourage any team like Hershey, and I think Calgary has one too, to institute the organ because it's a huge part of the game that we have right now.
And the other bit about it, too, I wanted to mention, it just came to mind after I stopped talking there initially, is that there's a little bit of controversy around this in the NHL for Hershey's NHL affiliate in Washington, as they recently stopped using their organ. They, the gentleman that played the organ there for so many years, kind of announced on Twitter that he was, not coming back, and, they weren't bringing that position back, I believe, if I remember right. And, it was met with a lot of sadness and, backlash just because it was, it's such a, storied thing in Washington to have that, whenever they announce their goals, have somebody play the organ just a little bit after each player and type that sort of thing. It was classic. And, that was part of it that kind of brought it on to me as well.
I give that move a swipe left. Just saying.
Hard.
All right. Well, since Jeremy isn't here today, I'm going to be pinch hitting here with a hot take. And of course, we're going to be talking to Thomas Bordelot here in just a few minutes. But I want to talk about the San Jose Barracuda. So far this season, they look legit. But what is going to take them over the top? In my mind, goaltending. Listen to these stats. Eetu Makiniemi has only 3 goals against in 2 games with a .954 save percentage. Aaron Dell, also 3 goals against in 2 games with a .959. Looking lead wide, they have the fewest goals allowed by a pretty sizable difference. Other than the Utica Comets, who have only played 3 games and have 8 goals against, the closest one is 10 goals against. And, that's only with 1 additional game. So, yes, goaltending will be the difference and the reason why San Jose continues to win games.
You know what? Right off the bat, swipe right. Eetu Makiniemi. Oh, my Lord. Andrew, help me.
Eetu Makiniemi.
Thank you. Him. and Arundel have been two great players on the San Jose team. And you know what? Arundel has proved to be himself a really good goaltender. Even some could argue that he could be a backup goaltender for the Sharks right now. But you know what? That I've preached this from day one. If any team is going to want to do anything, you look at the past AHL runs, the NHL runs, they're all held by a strong goaltender to help you get there. And this is certainly two goaltenders that could spell a strong run for the playoffs, and that will be the difference.
When I look at the two teams that made it to the Calder Cup finals last year, you had one that brought the big veteran presence that played some games up there in the NHL. You have that in Dell, and then you have the young, up-and-coming, promising player like whether it was Hofer or Kochekov, and you have that in Makiniemi. And Makiniemi had almost identical stats to Kochekov in Chicago. He was a part of that Brent Burns deal, and now he's in San Jose. And I hope he really gets a chance to shine and, show what he can do after, unfortunately, he got hurt for most of that season last year. So, yeah, I love what they got going in that. I think they're playing great hockey, and they're capable of going to the moon. Yeah, I'm swiping right on this.
I'd swipe right on this one as well. To Andrew's point there, it's no longer, a starter and a backup. It's 1A and 1B. And you have, the guy with the experience, like Arundel is a fantastic guy in terms of experience to have, as well as, like he said, an up-and-comer. But, the other thing for me is team defense. I mean, you can have the best goalies in the world, but if you're constantly giving up rushes and, quality chances, that's another staple to the, is your team game in a lot of ways. So I really think that there's a lot of good that goes along with this, but I really think that, it's a team game here as well. And, there's a lot of strong players out there just across the board. So I swipe right on it, but I'm giving up to the team on playing some solid defense here through the first couple of games of the season as well.
A very fair point. I guess special mention to defense as a whole for the Barracuda.
And I'll get one more thought in before I give my pick. In the AHL right now, everybody is a sharer. When you have these back-to-back games, you need to give that other goaltender a rest. When you have a strong goaltender you can rely on, that certainly helps the case. But we talked about it a little bit before on the show about Clark Bishop. But, I'm really a firm believer that this 4 games is the sweet spot for you can give him for this suspension with the cross checks. I say that because the way that the AHL schedules work, that he's probably going to be about a week and a half before he can play again, if not 2 weeks. So from that last game. So when you look at this, it really kind of gives time to think about it a lot more than it would any other time. And I think that this is the kind of sweet spot for that suspension.
Yeah, I'd probably give him a couple games for the first one, and then he comes up with number 2. That's probably worth another couple games. So, yeah, I agree with this, and it's kind of refreshing because how many times have you seen a suspension, and especially in the National League, where it's like, oh, it was not enough, or you can't really satisfy everyone, But this one kind of feels appropriate. So, good on the A for getting this one right. Swipe right.
Yeah, I agree. I got to swipe right for this one as well. I mean, we saw it earlier in the NHL this season where, Yevgeny Kuznetsov from Washington was hit with a 1-game suspension for a high stick. And, whether, it was negotiated down or, they didn't feel it was quite as intentional as I think a lot of people did. It was controversial. People thought that he got off a little bit lightly. And I think in this case, it's probably, it's definitely a little bit more blatant than that one is necessarily. You're comparing apples to oranges in a sense. But I think with this one, where it is a little bit more blatant, it's a little more, egregious. I think it's the sweet spot because it's, like you said, 2 games per cross check. It's a sign, he's going to have to sit and he's going to have to think about it, and he's, potentially going to be costing his team a little bit here too. So it's one of those ones where it makes you double check your actions. I'm sure the coach probably isn't happy about any of it, to be honest. And, it just kind of creates that shock wave that I think a lot of people need to have in order to, clean that out of their game for sure.
without knowing his, if there is a prior history or anything like that, I'm still going to have to swipe right on this one because it does set that precedence very early on in the season that this is something that the league will not be tolerating. And I'd be very interested to hear from Stephen Thomson and that player safety committee. Are they getting any say into these types of rulings as well? But I'm just happy that there is some sort of precedence that is being set. 4 games, again, like you guys said, seems like a really nice sweet spot. So yeah, I'll go for a swipe right on this. Now it is time to welcome our very special guest for this week.
Our next guest has been lighting up the league this year in the rookie department, scoring 3 goals in the first 4 games of this season. The native from Texas lit up the World Junior Hockey Championship this summer, with the U.S. scoring 8 points in 5 games. Please welcome San Jose Barracuda forward Thomas Boldereau.
What's up, guys? How's it going?
Good to have you as always.
Thank you.
So we're this episode's going to drop on Thursday, but we're talking on Tuesday here, and it was my understanding you guys just had an earthquake.
Yeah.
Did you guys feel it? Was everything okay? Like how what's running through your head while that's going on?
Actually, we had 2. Like, while we were on the ice, we had 1 that we didn't feel. I guess like people in the offices, like they felt it, I think, but on the ice we didn't feel it. And then I got a second one when I got back home, and that one I felt. I was just outside, just relaxing by the pool, and I actually felt that one, and the guys in the house felt it too. So it's pretty funny.
Thankfully, nice.
Have you ever been through an earthquake before, or is this kind of your first go around with that?
No, that was my first one, so yeah, I don't have a lot of experience with that.
So we're going to kind of rewind the clock here a little bit to last season. Now, of course, you played on an extremely deep and talented University of Michigan team. Several of your teammates already are moving on, just like you, to play in the NHL, AHL, ECHL. Now, do you guys keep in touch at all, or have you spoken to any of them now that your first full pro seasons are underway?
Yeah, I mean, we keep in touch all the time. We're such a really close group of guys at Michigan that yeah, it's just natural for us to keep texting, and we still call all the time. And if I have nothing to do on my phone and just relaxing, I'll probably call one of them, and we always have a good time together. So yeah, I mean, it's fun to just see them kind of tear it up, and just doing their thing in different jerseys and in their own different teams. But yeah, I definitely miss playing with them. It was good times, and we got the chance to all be back together in Michigan a couple weeks ago to go to that football game, and then them kind of honoring us on the field for winning Big Ten. And it was fun to just all the boys back together kind of, and really kind of just look at what we've done together over the year.
I got 2 questions for you. First, who do you think was the best player that you played with on that 21 team? And who's the best teammate you played with while you were there?
Well, choosing one would be impossible. I mean, best player, you could say anyone really. Like who do you want to say? You want me to tell you like the first overall, the second overall, the fourth overall, the fifth overall?
Yeah, sure. Who would you be taking number 1?
It's hard to say. They all excel in their little thing. With whatever it is, Owen is just kind of his patience with the puck. Kent is obviously his skills. Maddie is just his overall motor and just his speed, and kind of Luke is just phenomenal skater, and really skilled. And then you got Briss with a hell of a shot. Me more of a passer kind of vibes to him, his shot. We got Blankenberg, who's speed and skills and just toughness. I mean, it goes up and down the lineup. It was crazy. I'd say honestly the best player that the team last year was Portillo. He was such a big player for us, and it gets. I mean, the amount of breakaways we gave that guy to stop is pretty insane. So I'm sure if we're a little better defensively, he would have won some kind of award, even more. So I'd say him, and best teammate is so hard. We're so tight, all of us, that it's hard to pick one.
So last season was a bit of a whirlwind for you. You obviously went from playing in college to, making your debut with both San Jose as well as the Barracuda in the NHL and AHL levels, with 3 assists in your first AHL game, as my understanding is. And how would you say that experience, having that bit of experience last season, maybe helped you with getting adjusted for this season, as well as, just the difference between jumping from college to the pro ranks?
Yeah, I mean my days in the AHL last year were definitely kind of really quick. Kind of, I just showed up. I think we had like a morning skate, and then we had like 2 games back to back or something like that, and then I got called up. But it was just a really short time there, and obviously it was there's been a lot of changes since then. A new coaching staff, a lot of new players. I mean, it's a really different lineup than last year, and yeah, I think my time in the NHL is what helped the most, kind of getting ready for that pro life, just being around them, and just even men's world in Finland during the summer helped me a lot too. But yeah, just kind of seeing them practice every day and seeing little stuff about their game that kind of I can implement to my game. I think that was the biggest thing. And over the summer, it just made me hungry for more coming back. And that just right now, I'm just happy to be playing hockey with a bunch of guys that are fun to play with.
Now you kind of just mentioned, all you're playing over the summer. Now the off season was very busy, from the World Championships in Finland, and then the World Juniors in Alberta. Not to mention, development camp. Now I've talked to several players, and they really like having a lot of time to rest and refocus in the summer. So, how was it skating at those tournaments and camp? Do you feel like it helped you, or did you kind of miss that period of rest in the off season?
Oh, I definitely missed a lot of rest that I could have taken. It was definitely a go 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 type of summer. Like I rested a couple of days because my body just physically had to recover. Just from tournaments or camps or whatnot, and it was only like always just 2 3 days, and then it was always right back at it because I had to get ready for the next thing coming, or just kind of optimize my time as much as I could. And it was definitely a really really busy summer, but it was my last chance at World Juniors, so it was definitely worth it. And my summers in the future will definitely be different, that's for sure.
I mean, further to that point, not often that you're able to play hockey in the summer, especially full on games. What's the biggest difference between playing in August versus January or now, for say?
Probably just do what you do like off the ice. Honestly, like it's pretty similar. Like there's obviously like some leagues like 3-on-3 you play during the summer. It's different, or 5-on-5, just your hometown or whatever. But World Juniors was definitely high compete level. It was it really felt in season like, and or almost playoff time. And then men's world, same thing. Preliminary rounds maybe you could say was a little different hockey, but as soon as it got to one and dones, it got really serious, and it was really hard hockey. And Def Camp was more practices, obviously. But yeah, I think there was a lot of different hockey that I experienced too. Playing with older guys, stronger guys, and sometimes playing against some European hockey, some some certain types of players, certain ages, and I think it just kind of broadened my kind of who I played against and what I learned, from other summers for sure.
So last year was, well, for lack of a better term, bad for the Barracuda. You were there at the tail end, but between having a new coach, a new arena, and I mean this incredible start that you guys are on, how different does the vibe of the team feel coming out on fire like this?
Oh, we just feel like a totally new team. Like just really kind of we just got enclosures open, and we just got let off the leash. We're ready to go. We're ready to get rolling, and we're happy. It's just uh, that's what the vibe is. Just kind of happy, just kind of optimistic, and really light, really fresh, really kind of just you're enlightened to go to the rink every morning and just see the guys and just kind of get to it. And obviously the uh, the coaching staff has been great, and the players have been great, and fans have been really, really, receptive to the new building and kind of the new team, new kind of wave, and it's just fun to be a part of that.
So Andrew just alluded to it. Obviously, the Barracuda off to an incredible start here, undefeated 4 games in. The PK's clicking at 100%. But in your mind, what is play-wise? What's the difference between this roster and what's making you guys, or what's making all of this work so far?
I think it's just we're such a deep lineup. If you go through our 4 lines, there's not a lot of gaps in there. Like, you can just take, like, let's say our 4th line, quote unquote, is with Wheeler and Weather, and it changes with Robo or Rasky or whoever they put on their wing. They're giving us so much energy, and it's crazy. They stay as a quote unquote 4th line, but they stay in the ozone the whole shift. And they give us so much power, and it goes same thing for all the lines. So I think that's what our biggest strength is, and obviously goaltending. That's huge, like with Beller and Mackey or even Strauss, that they've all had a lot of experience, whether it's pro or tournaments and stuff like that. So we're lucky in all aspects, and I'd say depth is our biggest strength for sure.
So it was brought to my attention, your outfit coming in the opening night for the CUDA in a full head-to-toe teal suit. Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I mean, it was just a custom suit I got this summer from my friends at Glorious in Montreal, and I mean, they do such a great job. I've been working with them ever since I did my suit for the draft, and I've been getting really close to them, and I mean, we just got to talk, and I made a couple suits over the summer, but this one kind of was, for the first game or something like that. And it was fun to just kind of pull it out because, we kind of had fun with it. Just adding let's say some little things on the inside, or just instead of, a normal collared dress shirt, it was more of a just kind of tight, like, collar with a, with a little different button at the top, and no belt and stuff like that. Just kind of play with it. And that's what we came up with. So, yeah.
That's awesome. So this is kind of a consensus question to ask you from all of us, but individual goal songs are starting to become more of a thing in the NHL. If you had to pick any goal song for your own, what would you choose and why?
My God. I don't know. You're putting me on the spot there. Goal song that I'd use. I think I'd go Final Countdown, just because that was the goal song I used to listen to and my dad would score, and that's what they'd play, and that's kind of what has been ingrained in me. Like every time I hear that song, I think I'm in Bern in Switzerland just watching my dad's games, so I kind of like it.
I love it. Nice choice. And you mentioned earlier about, your roommates are in playing games right now. What is the game of choice there?
There's a lot of PGA, Madden, FIFA going around. Just kind of a mix of all 3. The new Call of Duty just came out, so I think they're gonna give that a good go. So yeah.
Who's the best at Chell?
Oh, it's just hard to say. We don't really play Chell. I'd say Merckx is pretty good on the sticks. I mean, it's hard to say. They're all pretty good, honestly. It's pretty good. They're good, skilled players in this house.
Yeah.
Do you guys look at your overall rating?
Oh no, not really. I don't. Again, like, we don't really play NHL, but I've never really sat down with an Xbox. I just looked up our names with anyone yet. So no.
And one final question here. If you had any message to share with the fans in San Jose, what would it be?
Just to, watch out and be excited for what's coming next. I think a lot of new things are in the works. So, and a lot of exciting things are in the works too. So just beware.
Well, Thomas Bordolo, thank you so much again for your time and joining us here at the Holy Grail podcast. Congratulations again on the success so far, and best of luck throughout the remainder of the season.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good day.
Well, guys, I don't know about you, but that was a very entertaining interview. One of the more, he had one of the biggest personalities out of players that I've talked to in a while, I think.
I don't know if it was the palm trees in the background, but he sounded really fun.
It looked like it was nice and warm there. And speaking of warm temperatures, we're going to talk about who's hot and who's not. Horrible segue, but hey, I don't have much to work with. So who's hot or who's not? We're going to kind of talk about who's impressing in the league this past week and, well, who hasn't been. So, Andrew, once again, you're RA.
Well, few teams are hotter than the Manitoba Moose right now. And as usual in Manitoba, all lines are helping to blow up the scoreboards. But this weekend, it was Mikey Azamon's turn to shine. This past Sunday, he attained every hockey player's dream with a Gordie Howe hat trick against the Rockford Ice Hogs. He had an assist on Declan Chisholm's game-winning goal. He had a third-period insurance goal of his own, and he had a fight with Rockford's Morgan Adams-Moisson. A hockey player's hockey player. Who's not? Well, you know, the Iowa Wild are one of two AHL teams that haven't found themselves in the win column yet. That's kind of a big not. But yeah, if those on YouTube are here to see some nice highlights from that big Moose win on Sunday, and Azamont was right there in the middle. And a guy who really been driving the play for this team that's won 4 straight. And I mean, that's about as hot as it gets. So I believe, yeah, there he is. Look at him dropping the gloves. See, I told you, I do like the rough stuff when it's done in this kind of manner. And that's a big guy he's taken on, man. And I mean, he's given up quite a size disadvantage there, but he doesn't go down without a fight. And like I said, every kid's dream. Who didn't dream about getting a Gordie in their pro career? I mean, we love to see it, and I think there's going to be a lot more of it come in Manitoba.
What's impressive to me is that game came on the trail end of a 3-3 on the road for Manitoba, and he still put up a Gordie. That's hot. That's hot.
Well, for me, for who's hot, I got to turn up. I got to give props to a Hershey rival here with the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. They've been performing very well here early in the season through 4 games. It should be 5, but we all know what happened with Utica in the early part of the season with their power outage there. But for the Penguins, it's a pair of veterans here, and this is a very young team. There's a very a lot of variety in this team, but it's the 2 old heads. It's Alex Nylander and Dustin Tokarski. You need your best players, your veterans, to be your best players, and these guys have been your best players. Dustin Tokarski has only allowed 5 goals in 3 games that he's played, while Nylander has 5 points, which is 3 goals and 2 assists in 5 games, in addition to having the shootout winner back on Saturday when they were playing the Hartford Wolfpack, who will come up later on in my segment here. But for the Penguins, they're also currently without 2 of their top players in Sam Poulin and Drake Kegula. I always butcher that name. I apologize. But it hasn't hampered them, like it would probably hamper some other teams. They have a lot of young players. That their whole team has been kind of like an X factor, in the Atlantic Division. A lot of people, myself included, wanted them to prove it to us so far. And so far they have, and it's going to be a good segue into my next couple of segments here with the Atlantic Division and what's to come here. But I think it's setting up a really good clash here early on. But as for who's not, so far it's the poor Hartford Wolfpack, who are one of the teams that just can't buy a win right now. They've been in a lot of their games here. They've been very close. They're 0-2, 1-1. So they have 2 regulation losses, an overtime loss, and the aforementioned shootout loss to Wilkes-Barre, in which, again, they couldn't buy a win. They had 3 shooters, all of them got stopped, and then Nylander comes in and scores on the shootout move there, and that was all Wilkes-Barre really needed. They've gotten contributions, well from their top 6, but, there's some guys that need to step up there, and, I'm almost guaranteeing that they will on Friday night when they're hosting my Hershey Bears up there in Hartford, which was a house of horrors for the Bears last season. But, it's been a story of, some teams with higher expectations like the Wolfpack, like the Thunderbirds that have struggled in the early portion of the season. And, they're on the list to turn it around here. Certainly. I think it's going to be a lot of parity in the Atlantic, and I don't expect it to last forever. That's for sure.
Turning to the North Division, and, I'm sitting there looking at the rosters, looking at scoring streaks and all that kind of stuff. And it was really hard for me to pick just one player. But I decided to look at the Syracuse Crunch, where you have Darren Radish and Jamel Smith. Both players are on multi-game point streaks, both of which began all the way back on October 14th, which, oh yeah, by the way, was the beginning of the season. So since that time, Darren Radish, 2 goals, 5 assists, with Smith nipping on his heels, 2 goals, 4 assists. For quite a few of these goals, they teamed up together, with one of them scoring, the other one either getting the primary or the secondary assist. If you're watching these clips, on that one that Jamel Smith just scored, Darren Radish had, I believe, the second assist on that one. But, Jamel Smith having quite the homecoming back into Syracuse. It's obvious just by looking at these clips what these two mean to this Crunch squad and the impact they're going to have while the Crunch work to get more W's under their belt. Some of these games that they're losing is, the first 2 games of the season, they lost in a shootout. These games are super close. They just need that little bit to push them over to the edge. These two can do it. Just keep them on a line, and the W's are going to start racking up. Flip side, who's not in the North Division? Is Laval okay? Somebody needs to check on them. In 5 games, they are 1-3-1-0. Honestly, this is shocking considering that this was a playoff team last year. They're second in the division in penalty minutes, second to last on the power play. But I guess if there is a bright spot, I always try to look for the silver lining here. And for the Laval Rocket, it's their penalty kill, where they are chugging away at 83.3%. But they got to get better everywhere else if they want to move into the hot and get out of my knot.
For sure. Lots of changes in the Montreal organization. For me, who's hot right now, it's Matej Blumel on Texas, who's been absolutely lighting up the AHL right now in goals. Consecutive points through the past 4 games, 5 goals at that time. He's been really an instrumental part of the Texas squad, who's had a couple of challenges over the past little while, but coming in fresh into the league is definitely refreshing to see someone who's on a consecutive game streak for points. For me, who's not? It's got to be the Vancouver Canucks Uber build. That's certainly not hot. 17 transactions within the first week of October to the 3rd week of October. We're talking about 20 odd days here, and there's been 17 transactions between the NHL and the AHL. I say this because you look at some of the division leaders around the AHL. These are the people you kind of look up to every now and again. You kind of want to know what's their secret sauce. Okay. San Jose in the Pacific Division, 4 transactions, 7 for Manitoba. Rochester, 6. Charlotte and Philadelphia, that mix, 5. It's not a way to win a hockey game with a revolving door, and that's what's been happening in Abbotsford. Is they've been doing all right, be it the players that they've had, but they've had a lot of transactions, a lot of people coming and going. And anybody who was wondering at home, 27 players so far have suited up for the Canucks from day one to now.
That's not a typo, right?
No. We are into this is episode 3. So we're 3rd week of the season here, folks. 27 players have worn an Abbotsford Canucks jersey, and It's not even November.
How much of that do you think is attributed to the Vancouver front office kind of not already kind of hitting the panic button, but
they have
kind of already hitting the panic button?
You know what? And I was actually looking at this the other day, and they kind of went into the season with some different expectations of their prospects, and I think that they kind of thought that the formula that worked last year didn't necessarily work, and that's why you've seen a lot of young talent be down in the AHL for at least some point, or with these moves. And so I think until that kind of revolving door mentality comes in and the Vancouver Canucks start winning games and they realize this is the roster that we want, it's got to change. But you know what? It's almost like the Vancouver Canucks realized, you know what? I didn't like any of these players that we seen in the preseason. So they're playing the first 5 games like a preseason and hoping for the best. And that's kind of trickled down to Abbotsford, 27 players, which is a lot.
Now we're going to turn our attention to basically the teams at whole in the division races for the Holy Grail. We're going to start with a different A, the Atlantic Division, and Corey's got the story on that.
Yeah, so for the Atlantic Division, it's been a tight race here so far. There's a lot of teams that are all over the place. A lot of teams have been trading real estate here so far. I would probably say for my pick for Atlantic Divisions for a standout is the Lehigh Valley Phantoms so far. I feel like they've been kind of following strongly in their NHL affiliate with a surprising bucking of what the trend that everybody's kind of been saddling them with, that, they'd be at the bottom of the division, not winning many games, in general struggling. That's how it looked coming out of it. But, much like the Flyers have, the Phantoms have been proving a lot of people wrong, and that they've been, pushing very strongly. They're 2-1-1 in their first 4 games. They have a couple of rookies that are leading the way. Elliot Denoyer, which is one of my favorite names in hockey now, to be honest with you. He has scored, I think he has, I'm trying to remember my stats here and find them. He has 3 goals, and another rookie defenseman, Ronnie Attard, had 2 goals over the weekend against the Cleveland Monsters. It was a beauty for his first AHL goal, which I, believe, if I remember right, we have a clip for, hopefully. So, here you see, he's kind of in that sweet spot right between the 2 face-off circles. Little bit of traffic, a low seeing eye shot that just kind of, gets in through some traffic there, beats the goaltender. He ended up having a second one in that same game. So it's been a pretty great start for him here so far. And, that's kind of the team that I'm zeroing in on as kind of my pick in the Atlantic to, continue excelling for sure.
Once again, turning to the North Division, looking at the North as a whole, it's not escaping me the irony that all the teams that kind of struggled last season are now the ones that are in the top half of the standings. You've got Rochester that, squeaked into the playoffs last season. Cleveland, which was out. Belleville, kind of the same thing. They got hot there a little bit at the end of last season, but they're in 3rd place. And Toronto, now rounding it out, are Syracuse, Laval, and Utica. But despite that, this is obviously wide open. We're in the infancy of this season, but across the board, the goals for and goals against are incredibly close. And honestly, for a lot of these teams, one call up could make or break some of these teams and this standing race at this point.
And moving over to the Central, no Mikhail Burden, no problem for the Manitoba Moose. As I talked about before, 4 straight wins behind rookie Oskari Salminen and an offense that scored at least 4 goals in every game so far this season. They're just absolutely on fire to kick this campaign off, and they're on top of the division as a result. Grand Rapids and Texas are both 3-2 and tied for 2nd place. Then you got your defending Calder Cup winners in Chicago sitting at 4th with a win this afternoon over the Stars. And then you got Milwaukee, Rockford, and Iowa crowding the basement with 2 points apiece. So it's still early. There's still a lot of times for Milwaukee and Rockford to get out of there. Iowa, that you might just grab a lunch and kind of take a seat because you might be there for a minute.
It's cold. The San Jose Barracuda have been leading things in the Pacific Division, but don't count out Ontario, which is off to a near perfect start with a 4-1 record. And for a team that I said wasn't going to be as good this year, I will stand corrected. They're living up to some pretty good expectations as we go down the line. Coachella Valley, Tucson, Bakersfield, Colorado, Abbotsford, and San Diego in that order going down the list. And near the bottom of the Pacific has Calgary with a 1-3 record, and the Henderson Silver Knights off to an abysmal start at 1-5.
And just a reminder, we are done with the whole points percentage thing. We are back to actual points where the record, really means something. And we're back to 72 games. So it's not some weird math gymnastics that we've got to do to figure these things out. So just for the people keeping track at home. All right. Now that you know where everybody stands, let's look ahead to the future. And we're going to give you our Game of the Week selections.
So for me over in the Central, I could go with the Beats, but I'm going to pick a different route. And I'm going to go with the weekend series between the Iowa Wild and the Manitoba Moose. Now, this has the potential to be a downright dummying of the Wild, as I kind of alluded to before, but I think if you really want to send a message that you're not going to be the doormat of the division, Iowa has to go up here in the Winnipeg and get yourself some points. And I don't think Tim Army's squad is just going to lay down despite the discrepancy in the standings here. I think it's going to be some really good hockey playing as they got to play for pride, and what better way to do it than against the top dog in the division?
Yeah, and absolutely. So for me, I'm zeroing in on Pennsylvania, as I always tend to do, but it's going to be a fun weekend. I'm actually kind of going with 3 games rather than just a single one or a single set, but it's kind of the trio of Pennsylvania teams will all be kind of trading dance partners here a little bit over the weekend. So on Friday, it's going to be the Wilkes-Barre-Scranton Penguins over in Allentown to take on the Phantoms before they travel to Hershey on Saturday. And then the 2 remaining teams get together with Lehigh Valley and Hershey on Sunday. So it's a tough schedule for everybody, because most of them, I believe, Wilkes-Barre is 3 games in 4 days, while Hershey and Lehigh Valley are 3-3s for the first time this season. So it's going to be a tough schedule. And, by the time you get to that Saturday game for Wilkes-Barre and the Sunday game for the other 2 teams, it's going to get feisty. It's going to be, there's going to be some tired teams that are going to be landing all on the line. So I think it's going to be some feisty Atlantic Division drama this weekend for sure.
Going to the north. Remember how I talked about Laval being honestly, what better way to prove me wrong than their upcoming 2-game set against the Rochester Americans this Friday at 7 Eastern, and then turning right around Saturday at 3 o'clock Eastern. Now, of course, going up against a divisional foe always makes for some good hockey, but when you have a team that should hopefully be chomping at the bit and scratching for wins right now, this could be quite the mini series. And oh yeah, it's a rematch of the North Division Finals from last season, where Laval, I believe, swept Rochester. So, they're going to be wanting some revenge. This could be an explosive couple of matches here.
Yeah, and looking at the Pacific Division, it's got to be Tucson and San Jose this week. It's looking to be a doozy. I know we've kind of teed it up there with our guest this week. San Jose has been off to a roaring start here, and Michael Carcone has proved himself to be a big player in the points production with 5 assists and a goal throughout 4 games played, and that's coming up this weekend. And as well, be sure to watch the AHL free game of the week if you're in the mood for some Friday matinees. I know we talked about it a little bit earlier. AHL TV has you covered. The Colorado Eagles and the Henderson Silver Knights, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on AHL TV. And also be sure to check out on the Field Pass Hockey app. We are in Providence and Hartford. Providence on Saturday is going to take on Charlotte. You can catch that on the Field Pass Hockey app, now available on the Google Play and Apple Android store. And like I said, in the playoffs, I get paid by the click, so be sure to tune in for that.
The check will be in your mailbox here soon. I promise. We're just about to the end of the show, but we have one more segment for you, and that is the bonus round. Now, since I was the winner of last week's bonus round, I have, I guess, the honor of presenting this week's, and mine is penalty minutes inspired. We're going to, I love to rewind the clock a little bit, so we're going to go back to last season. And I have 3 questions for you guys. Why 3? I don't know. It just sounded good to me. So, okay. So we are looking at the total penalty minutes for last season. First, I'm going to look at goaltenders. Which goaltender played the most games and had the fewest penalty minutes last season?
Dustin Wolf seems like he wouldn't be a guy who would start a whole lot of scraps.
He was third.
Oh.
You want to give us a hint?
Central Division. And he played in 54 games.
I should know this.
You should know this.
Wasn't Cal. Wasn't Lion. Wasn't anyone on Soderblom?
No.
2 hours later.
Ingy?
The who?
Ingram?
Yes, Connor Ingram.
Oh.
0 penalty minutes
Wow.
across
Oh,
54
what a classy guy.
Wow.
Rounding out the top 3 was Justus Annunen with 0 penalty minutes across 48 games, of course, with the Colorado Eagles. And then Dustin Wolf with the Stockton Heat, also 0 penalty minutes across 47 games.
Wow.
I didn't realize Ingram started that many. I thought Cooley would have gotten in there a little more.
That's what I was kind of thinking. Wow.
Huh?
Okay, now we're going to turn our attention to the skaters. So same question, who skated in the most games and had the fewest penalty minutes?
I know this. I did.
Ooh.
Is it weird that I can only think of players who don't fit that list or the opposite end of the spectrum there?
Right. My
I
mind
know it's not
is
Cale Kessie.
immediately going to Cody McLeod.
That's the name. Is it McLeod? No.
For fewest?
Oh, fewest.
Yes, fewest.
Oh, Lord.
The
Oh,
day
I don't know.
that he hits fewest in the most games played, I don't know. That would be I would honestly think that I'm in an alternative reality.
Oh boy.
This player also Central Division.
Watch it be like Podorowski.
It's
No,
not.
Potts had a bit of a feisty side to him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just a little bit.
Potts had enough to get himself into a couple situations. Hiroshi?
No. I can give you a team if that would help.
Yeah.
Maybe.
The
You know,
Texas
you're not in outer
Stars.
space.
No, I'm not.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Success.
Oh, Ohio is outer space now. Yes, the
Always has
Texas
been.
Stars.
Can you tell me if I picked him in my fantasy pool?
I do not believe you have. Last name starts with a K.
Tomorrow.
I should know this again. Carlson?
You are so close with the name. Like literally just a couple letters off.
Oh. I thought Carl. What the?
Carl?
It's not Carlson.
Is it just Carl?
No, it's not Carlson.
2,000 years later.
No, that's on the Marlies.
Like Carlson is so close. You need to add a couple letters and change a letter.
Frederick Carl Strum, is it?
It is.
Strum?
Oh my god.
How you guys know this is beyond me. Like,
That's in my division.
I just remember that
should
name.
know it.
I don't know what I had for breakfast. Lord.
Okay. This last question, you guys are almost out of your misery. I'm going to, make this
Okay, I'm still alive.
easier from now on. Okay, so now we're going to go to the complete other end of the spectrum.
Cody McLeod.
No, actually, no. He is second. There was one player from last season that had more penalty minutes than Cody McLeod. Who was it?
It wasn't
Bob
Cale
Probert?
Kessie, was it?
It was not Cale Kessie.
Darn it.
He actually isn't even in the top 10.
He was a good boy last season. I don't remember him getting into nearly as much trouble as in years past. So I was doubtful of it myself. Can we get a hint for division possibly?
Pacific.
That's why I can't think of it.
It's got to be like it's guy in San Jose, right? It's just you're getting dummied 6-0 every game, and you're like, well, I just might as well go.
You have the right idea though, but not San Jose.
Andrew, we talked about San Jose being terrible in penalty minutes one time.
Oh, that's true. So it's got to be Tucson?
Yes.
Oh, I can't name anyone on Tucson other than Matthias Michelli.
First, no.
Andrew,
we definitely talked about this last year. That's the funny thing is we had a whole conversation about this.
We talked about this player at one point last year, specifically about this player.
I remember Jeremy saying you can't go taking those bad penalties. This is why you're losing. And
it's not a Tucson player, is it?
It is a Tucson player, yes.
Oh, I can't think of the guy. I know who it is. I just can't think of the guy's name. It's something. I know who you're talking about because he was that guy that got into.
He's that guy who had all the
trouble.
Yeah, that guy.
Didn't he get into trouble for something big last season? I'm blanking on it.
We talked about this player because after 5 seasons in the American Hockey League, he finally made his NHL debut last April.
Yeah, but does it count if you're with Arizona?
It's something odd, like it starts with an I or something like that.
Yes, Corey. Yes. The last name starts with an I. You're so close.
I feel like I'm in the Indiana Jones movie where they're trying to get through all those traps in the Last Crusade.
It's Artis Urbe. That's who it is.
Oh my God! I thought you legitimately had it for a second.
Okay, first name starts with a B. Last name starts with an I. I know people at home are screaming right now.
Oh no!
Can I phone a friend? Can I call Jeremy?
If you can reach Jeremy, go right on ahead.
Phone a friend?
Yes, phone a friend. Go right on ahead.
See, the worst part is I feel like it's also one where it's a tricky pronunciation too. So I'm half afraid I may butcher it when I do remember it. It's like it's like Amame or something like that.
Amame.
No.
That's the last name at least.
What?
Boko, right?
Yes,
Boko.
It's Boko. Boko Amama.
I couldn't remember his first name.
Well, I didn't want to. I didn't know.
I honestly want to give that one to Corey because he was on the right track. He had it.
He got it all there before it even like registered.
Okay.
I just couldn't picture the name, honestly.
Did anybody keep track of points?
2 for Corey.
Yeah,
for
give
Corey?
it to Corey.
All right, Corey.
I'm on the board.
You're not just on the board. You are the winner.
You are the
of
board.
This week's bonus round. So that means next week you will lead this segment. So
I gotta get thinking.
I'm very interested to see what Corey is going to come up with. So
I actually had a good one. I think I may already know what it's going to be. So it'll be a good Hershey related question for you guys.
I like it.
that's got to be some sort of a record for this podcast for the earliest that somebody knows what they're going to do for the bonus round.
Yeah, normally I figure it out like while the episode's going on.
Yeah,
it's a coincidence. It was a coincidence. It was a Nathan Walker related stat that led me to this one yesterday because they had a great interview with him on I think it was on Bally Sports Midwest before their game last night. And it is, it's stuff, as a hardcore Nathan Walker fan, I already knew, of course, all of it. But it was a stat. It leads into a Hershey stat, but it was one that I think I'm going to find a way to tie it in for you guys.
Perfect. Well, I'm going to be studying up on my Hershey Bears and Nathan Walker lore here for the next week. But for this week, that is it for the Holy Grail. If you'd like to see or hear more of us, please subscribe to us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Also, please follow us on Twitter at the Holy Grail. And then, of course, as Zach talked about earlier, you can download the Field Pass Hockey app. on the Google Play or the Apple App Stores. You can also check out all of Field Pass Hockey's other podcasts. You have Inside the SPHL with James Hayes. You have Rolling Thunder, a Wichita Thunder podcast with Matthew Harding. Syracuse Speaks with Alex Ackerman. Of course, all about the Syracuse Crunch. And then coming soon, a new look for Monsters Musings with Jeremy Paul and myself. So next week, you'll want to stick around. We have a special guest already lined up for next week, where Jessica Campbell, assistant coach of the Coachella Valley Firebirds, will be joining us next week. So stay tuned for that. On behalf of all of us here at the Holy Grail, we hope you have an amazing week, and we'll catch you all next Thursday. Bye.
This has been the Holy Grail Podcast. Have a question or a topic suggestion? Hit us up on Twitter or drop us an email. For the latest news across the American Hockey League and the rest of minor league hockey, download the Field Pass Hockey app, now available in the Apple and Android app stores.
Boko.
Oko.
Boko. Jasmine.
Jasmine.
I heard Jeremy say it like 1,000 times. Like, you know what? It was burned right here, and I could hear Jeremy being like, "I can't believe he did this. I can't believe it."
Oh.
And then I blended in the goaltender that I couldn't pronounce, and Boko. to get the contraption
There we go.
that I had to scream from the heavens. Thank God.
Oko and Mama.
All right. Well, it's just about to the end of the show. And sorry, I got distracted. The Jackets are losing to Arizona 4-0.
Oh.
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 Ew. Anyway.
You say that, but you could be Vancouver right now.
Anyway.
Well, if they were Vancouver and they were up 4-0, they'd probably be panicking. So
Right? Right? Andrew gets it.